Welcome back to my channel. It's Wednesday, October 25th, 2023, and I hope you're having a fantastic day. We're right smack in the middle of season 18 of Sister Wives, and if you're used to reading my other stuff, I'm sorry. There's always something new up here every day. And today, well, things are getting melty. Yesterday, we discussed Gwendolyn and Jendelyn's Patreon, where Gwendolyn did not hold back on bashing Christine. And last week, Melty called Robyn a liar. But this week, she manages to finally let the cat out of the bag, proving, in fact, that Robyn is lying. Ouch. And if that wasn't enough, she spilled some juicy tea, answering some questions from her Patreon members about the episode of the twins, the artwork in Kody and Robyn's walls, and yes, how much they spend. A couple of weeks ago, Mykel spilled the tea about Robyn having a shopping addiction. Now she's gone further by showing the world some artworks that have kept social media speculation. Someone on TikTok identified paintings on Kody's walls as works by Vladimir Kos. And these are no ordinary paintings, alone estimated to be between $6,000 and $12,000, while their collection may range in value from $25,000 up to $335,000. Mykel confirms the artwork is real, and she hints there's an interesting reason why Kody collects it. So let's dive into this whole topic. Before we get into this, boys, just a little favor to ask. If you wouldn't mind throwing this video a like, making sure you're subscribed if you haven't already, and hitting that notification bell so you never have to miss a video. All right, let's get into one of the big ones. One of the longest kept secrets on the show has been an ATV accident with Dayton way back in 2012. Surprisingly, it never aired on Sister Wives, but Kody and Robyn did talk about it a few times on the show. The first was during some sort of family ATV outing, when Dayton acted apprehensive about getting on a vehicle. Robyn said he had been out of town with friends and gotten in an ATV accident. Then Dayton showed up on the show again, and they talked about how surgery to repair damage to his eye was going to have to take place, scarring on his face, in his eye socket. Plastic surgery was to get Dayton so he could open his eye more comfortably. This accident has always been somewhat elusive. In 2014, one fan asked Robyn if Dayton had Horner syndrome, which is a condition resulting in drooping in one eye. She replied, "No, Dayton was in an ATV accident. He requested we not cover this story on Sister Wives. He is doing great now."
I have to stop a moment here. Can you envision a world in which a child might ask that a major accident not be shown on a reality series of television? It was 2012, early in the series, back when many viewers still thought of them as a decent family. He was already manipulating people. At least he was well practiced with some people by this time, since the family had had multiple births and would shortly afterwards have some serious hospitalizations, such as acute kidney failure. But then, when Dayton got into an accident that left him looking really different, it never aired. Robyn said because Dayton didn't want it on the show, and yeah, I'd imagine that was a big part of it. But also, there's just this broader issue of how the family decides what to share and what to keep to themselves. They also worked in pieces of Dayton's accident into the show, but very selectively. They did an episode on his surgery, so it was technically covered, but the details were kept really vague. Viewers assumed Dayton had simply been out of town with friends and wasn't, well, injured. This framing led fans to assume all sorts of things. When you hear that a 12 or 13-year-old went out of town with friends, your brain immediately starts asking, where would a kid that age even go? Who is he visiting? And why is he alone? A lot of people immediately assumed Robyn was referring to Dayton's biological father. The accident also had larger implications for Robyn's relationship with Kody. This was in 2012, and later a lien of over $30,000 was placed on her house in Las Vegas to pay off outstanding bills from the hospital. These bills were supposed to be handled by her ex-husband, but he apparently clashed with Kody over the costs, partly because it was he who was supervising Dayton when the accident happened. Ultimately, an agreement was made that Kody would cover the hospital bills because it happened under his watch. This really wasn't something highlighted on the show, and even Mykel admitted she hadn't known the full story. She didn't realize that parts of this had been shared at all. Here's what she said. Who was Dayton with when he got into the big accident years ago? Was he with Kody or with his dad? He was with my dad, Mykel said.
The big accident actually happened during a Thanksgiving trip. Mykel explained that the family had been invited by Chris Bloxam. Yes, the guy who runs the family pond and pops up for a few cameos on the show. He invited her family to his place for Thanksgiving, and there were a few four-wheelers, so naturally they went out for some ATV fun. Mykel said her dad was out riding with Dayton at the time, and the person who actually found Dayton after the accident was Hunter. So it happened on this family Thanksgiving trip. Here's what we know from her original version. It was over Thanksgiving, at a property in St. George, about an hour and 45 minutes from their Las Vegas home. Dayton was riding an ATV with Kody. He ended up crashing, driving into a barbed wire fence, and wasn't being properly supervised.
There was Kody, yes, but Dayton had no experience, and the accident happened under those conditions. That got him admitted to a Las Vegas hospital. It is a little murky how they got him there so fast, considering St. George has its own hospital 1 hour and 45 minutes away, but that is how the story went on. Later, with fans in the comments asking more questions, there became some clarity that there might have been some inconsistencies. Mykel's story didn't exactly match how Robyn had described it on the show, and she started to tweak the details slightly, almost like they were referencing a completely different crash. Okay, so now it gets a little hairy. Viewers began to speculate that the crash Mykel was referring to was the same one Dayton had on the four-wheelers, and at first she seemed just as confused. "I don't know which crash you guys are talking about," she said. But then she finally realized the viewers were all talking about the same incident, the Thanksgiving crash in St. George. Initially, she was quite clear. Dayton was with Kody when it happened. She kept insisting that he was there, that they were riding together, and that this was the crash that had caused Dayton's gouged eye and facial scars. She insisted upon that. But then the fans asked Mykel about Robyn's version, where Dayton was said to be out of town with friends and even with his biological father, and she hedged. It was as if she felt herself second-guessing her memory against what had finally appeared on screen. She began to hedge. "I don't know that my dad was there. It was actually Hunter who found him and had to put his face back together after he went through a barbed wire fence." It's as if she hadn't fully processed how it all went down, how the accident was portrayed on the show. And honestly, it makes a lot of sense. They didn't really get into all the details on air, but that would have looked pretty bad for Kody. Having an inexperienced kid on an ATV crash while under your guide isn't the best look.
But here's the important thing to remember. Dayton has Asperger's autism spectrum disorder, and Mykel has made it crystal clear he requires special assistance and supervision around activities. Taking an inexperienced driver like Dayton, who for his part hasn't ever ridden an ATV before, and putting him on one is a recipe for disaster. Put him on camera for a reality show, and it's a whole different ballgame. One slip up in supervision and he could get seriously hurt. Unfortunately, Kody wasn't providing that supervision. Dayton ended up driving into a barbed wire fence. At first, Mykel said her dad was with him, but then she seemed to waver. Was her dad with her, really? Maybe not. The thing is, fans notice how a lot of people are pretty quick to cover for Kody, and if I'm being completely honest, it kind of seems like the show skipped any key details on purpose. Even during court proceedings when she was working on Dayton's adoption, these details weren't shared with Preston Jessup. She filed documents portraying him as a bad parent, but didn't include the specifics of the accident. On the day of the crash, she said he had an accident and that he had been with friends without elaborating on the specific details of what happened. But the bottom line is that if you were riding an ATV on someone else's land and something went down, there was liability there. They may have had the ability to sue the owner of the land or even been sued themselves. So there's been a legal and a personal reason to keep the facts ambiguous there. But then things go further south. Eventually, when Preston had custody of their kids, he asked Dayton about the accident. But before he could, he was instructed by Robyn not to, which if you ask me, is just a bit over the top. So when he does ask, within minutes of getting custody of the kids, Robyn is texting him as quick as a snake about being cornered by Dayton, which then goes into court as evidence of his poor parenting. "I cannot believe how angry the kids were when I picked them up," she wrote in the text. "You are deceiving the children, involving them in material meant for adults, and upsetting them. That is not emotionally healthy behavior. If there is anything that you want to know about the accident involving Dayton, you could and should have asked me." However, that is not exactly what happened. She seriously did have a talk with him that day itself regarding the accident, but she alleged that he said that Preston was cornering Dayton and misunderstanding what he said. Another parent, Aurora, also apparently said the same thing. Then Robyn, based on their parenting agreement that states kids should never be drawn into the disputes between adults, told him that, "Make this change or I'll take it up with the judge." She further said that the kids are tired of him and that he would never give a reason that the kids should live with him.
As it seems, questioning him about the serious accident he was a part of was never allowed as far as Robyn is concerned. And when he did question him about it, he was accused of manipulating the kid. It kind of feels as if Robyn has somehow impacted the kid's understanding of this whole scenario. Robyn was not communicating directly with Preston about the accident. His niece explained that she was deliberately deceiving Preston because she wanted, first of all, to protect Kody's identity, since he was with Dayton during that time. Preston was right in thinking that if Kody was in a supervising position, then he was liable. Martin's methods were manipulative. She pretty much gaslighted Preston, making him think there was something wrong with him. And of course, everything centered around money, since Preston was only offered the children if he surrendered custody, and Kody would pay the hospital bills. Remember, this is the same guy who was struggling financially from spending habits when he and Robyn split. So yeah, much of this was complete Loyola from the show, and Mykel, while it seemed to begin by covering for Robyn, accidentally blew the whole thing wide open. Then comes the art. This has become an issue after a TikTok user found that Kody and Robyn had a couple of Vladimir Kush art pieces hanging in their home. The art pieces ranged from $6,700 to $42,000, and they included 4 of them that were close to $20,000. Mykel confirmed that the art pieces were authentic. If one observes the financial behavior of Robyn and Kody, as evident in their spending on paintings, jewelry, and an enlarged dwelling, it's hard to notice, especially given that Janelle has very few assets to speak of. Kody supposedly had several reasons, as provided to Janelle, as to how he could pay off some of his debts, even though he got plenty of help through Janelle's generous donations, such as the sales of the Las Vegas residence to allow Robyn to purchase a new one. With regards to why he buys artwork in particular, Mykelti described an explanation of her dad's perspective. His thing is, he likes looking at it, but it's an investment. It's for the future. So it means more to him in terms of securing something for the future. In other words, one of the reasons that Kody is investing in costly artwork, according to Mykelti, is that he considers this to be a safer investment for his money. Basically, rather than sticking cash under a mattress, he is investing in artwork. Janelle is much more frugal with her finances. Not that investing in artwork is necessarily irresponsible. Investment is investment, regardless of whether you're putting money in artwork or elsewhere. And Mykelti regards Janelle as being the most frugal person with finances in her family.
Currently, Kody and Robyn have what is termed gigles, which are basically high-quality prints of an original work of art, in this case an oil painting. Fine art is a good investment, yet it can also make an individual quite poor, since art can be unpredictable. And then mass production has ensured that prints can easily reach every nook and corner. However, Mykelti doesn't actually believe that Kody is purchasing art because he's thinking ahead. Instead, in her view, it's almost like he wants to display his ownership of a Vladimir Kush painting. He owes so much that spending money on pricey art seems wasteful to her. For example, he's purchased some of this artwork before he's even taken care of his debt in Coyote Pass, while at the same time telling Janelle that he doesn't have enough money to pay that off. But it's not just the art. Kody has allegedly donated more than $99,000 to political campaigns. He wears Rolex watches, his wife Robyn wears Tiffany necklaces, Rolex watches, and a David Yurman ring that costs about $4,000. They are spending money faster than they are taking it in. Kody definitely has a taste for the status symbols, luxury goods, ostentatious art, and it gives a sense of a family living beyond their budget, at least as Mykelti has perceived them to be. Kody is obviously a man of refined tastes, and as Janelle made clear in the previous season, if Kody and his sister Robyn hadn't been spending money the way they were, the mortgage at Coyote Pass would have been long since paid off by now. However, it didn't have anywhere near the level of importance in his eyes as did the Lexus, David Yurman jewelry, prints by Vladimir Kush lining the walls, and so forth. To him, these are symbols of status: watches, cars, jewelry, among other things. On the other hand, Janelle is a responsible spender of her money. The greater source of the family's income is generated by the show, and if Kody and Robyn are spending so much money on artwork, jewelry, and autos, then there is very little left to pay off debts and provide homes to the wives. Take Janelle, for instance, who did not purchase her very own RV, but has a loan outstanding on it even now. Kody could have represented her, but instead he invested the money in himself as well as Robyn. So to wrap up, Kody lied about the Dayton incident out of possible liability, Robyn also lied, and Mykelti hadn't a clue about the whole thing until now. That's it for this video. There's more to come, but it would mean a lot to me to hear your thoughts about all of this. Bye, guys.